Okay. This is a topic tonight that's very passionate for Elevation Association and for me and Dan and Ryan. The top 5 mistakes when implementing traction into your practice and the consequent challenges that result from the making those mistakes. So I do not have the gift of gab like some other people have, which I wish I had more, but so it's not going to be super long tonight, but I hope that you can take home some pearls from this presentation, and that you'll be able to think about the areas of implementing traction into your practice and some things that you have done or not done or want to do or change or whatever. So first of all, let's talk about why you should implement traction in the first place. You know, we if you don't know what traction is a book by Gino Wickman, and it is an operating system for any small business between 5 and 500 employees. And for most dental practices, you fit into that. Some are smaller. Some dental practices are, 3 people, 4 people. If that's the case, you may not need traction. You could probably figure a lot of this out on your own. But if you're getting to having 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 employees or people in your practice, then traction gives you an operating system under which you can build and grow. And so um, let me just share a little bit of history of me and why I implement traction. Um, this was how my patients perceived me. I graduated dental school in 2006. I bought a practice in 2008. And by 2015, this is what my patients perceived that I looked like. My family, outside of my wife and kids, perceived me like this. And on the outside, I had everything. I was very successful. I had, everything that I needed and wanted. Um, and it looked like I was doing great. But on the inside, as you all know, this is how I felt. I was like stranded on an island. I was rugged. I was operating this practice that I had bought in 2008, and wasn't sure exactly what I was doing. But dentistry is profitable, so you can run your practice, you can manage it, you can make money, and that's great. But when you get to this point inside where you're feeling these feelings of isolation, kind of abandoned, almost tricked by your profession that this was going to bring happiness and fulfillment, that's when you start to search for answers of the things you should do differently. So Dan and Ryan and I went to a conference. And in this conference, this the one of the speakers recommended that we read the book Traction along with a couple other books. So this is the book Traction by Gino Wickman. And so we bought this book, and we started to dive into it. And I came across this introduction of the book, and this is what intrigued me in the book, and this is why I implemented traction, and why now as EA we implement traction with other practices, and we love this operating system. The first quote says, "What if I told you that by reading this book and by applying its core principles, you could eliminate all of your business related frustrations?" And I had a ton of frustrations. My business was controlling me. There was never enough profit. I'd hit a ceiling. There's all these frustrations that I had that I wasn't quite sure what to do with my practice at this point in time. So here Gino Wickman is promising you could eliminate all of your business related frustrations. I'm intrigued at this point in time. The second one, that you could have great employees at all levels who share your vision, communicate with each other, solve their own problems, and demonstrate accountability. That sounded pretty fantastic to me, because at the time I was struggling with some of my employees. I didn't know how to solve the problems, and I was trying to solve all of the problems, and I was not holding anybody accountable for anything except for myself. And the third quote says that your organization can not only run seamlessly, but also have the potential to scale up as large as you see fit, which I thought was cool. I didn't know. Like I said, I was stagnant. I had hit production, and it was the same. Dan and I were producing the same for a few years, and we didn't know where to go from there. So this is what I felt like after I read Traction. I got to page 38 or 40, I can't remember what it was, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is incredible. These are words of wisdom that we really need to implement, and then we need to help others implement this. This was like this is literally a fire that lit underneath me to get this business in order and get it rolling here. Um, we went through everything, and we implemented some things. And here are some mistakes that we learned along the way, not just with us, but with other practices who try to implement traction, because it can be a difficult thing to implement. It's a lot. I don't know if it's difficult. I'm going to say it's a lot, and you need to make sure that you're ready to implement it. So the first mistake is you read the book, you get excited, you talk to Jared, you talk to Dane, talk to Ryan, and you're excited to implement it. You go to their leadership weekend course. They talk about traction, how great it is, and you go home and you say, "All right, we're going to do this. I'm going to implement this." But you implement it before you're ready. This is what's going to happen. You're going to have a staff that is resistant to change. We've all come home from CE courses, or all come home from talking to somebody and started to implement something, maybe before we thought it through completely. And your staff says, "Oh boy, here we go again. We have another thing that Dr. Hill is trying to implement here." Well, you know what? I like what I do. I've got a system. I do not want to change. So what do you need to do? How do you need to prepare completely to implement traction before implementing traction? This is a 5 series books. Do you have to read all 5 books? No, absolutely not. You don't have to do this. But you do need to read that big one in the middle, the big black one. It says traction. Get a grip on your business. Read through that, go through the cookbook. And then if you have questions about something, the other 4 books, those orange ones, are supplemental books that go into more detail about different aspects of traction. Rocket Fuel talks about the difference between a visionary and an integrator, how those two play together. The one on the right, what the heck is EOS? Read through that one if you want to. That is a simplified version of traction for your staff. If you think, you know what, my staff is probably going to wonder what this is, buy them a book. It's a super easy. It's got a lot of pictures. It's great. It's a good read. How to be a great boss, get a grip. So these are all supplemental books that you don't need to read, but if you're going to implement traction, you can come to our seminars, you can talk to Dan and Ryan and I, but read the book. You got to go through it, and you have to, because there are it is essentially a cookbook that you need to go through, follow the recipe, and it will guide you through the process. Now, you may have questions along the way, and that's why we're here, because we've been through it and worked through it. But you got to read the book before you do it. And once you read the book, I think that these are 5 essential steps to have in place before you say, "Hey, we're going to implement traction. We're going to do this." One is the accountability chart, and I'll go through each of these here in a few minutes. 2 is the VTO, or the Vision Traction Organizer. You got to get that filled out. You've got to go through it. You can't implement stuff. You can't start to run through this without that being full. Rocks. What are the most important things once you have your vision? What are the most important things this quarter that you want to accomplish before you implement it? L10 meetings. This is important. I'll go through this, but you have to set aside a time ahead of time. You have to take away a little bit of treatment time in order for your staff to set aside the proper amount of time to have these meetings. Now, because I'm going to tell you, if you try to hold them after work, everyone's tired. No one's going to put any effort into the meeting. If you try to do it before work, like early, there's going to be excuses. There's going to be kids. There's going to be dogs. There's going to be all sorts of things that are weathers, things that aren't going to work. We highly recommend you take away a little bit of treatment time. Basically, you have to slow down in order to speed up to do this thing. And then the 5th thing is your scorecard. And I'm going to show you examples of these, but make sure you fill out. You don't need to fill out the scorecard. You need to have a basic understanding of what the scorecard is. Okay, the accountability chart. Let's review this real quick. This is a generic accountability chart for any small business between 5 and 500 people. Yours will start like this. Yours will not end like this. You need to build it out, but you at the top, you better have identified who the visionary in your practice is, and you better have identified who the integrator of the practice is. And from our experience, dentists are usually visionaries. Not always. Sometimes they're integrators, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're none of them. Sometimes they're simply in the operations department of a practice, which is totally fine. But if so, you need to have a visionary, a person who has big ideas, who's creative, solves problems, who's great with these relationships. Because of those 20, and you need to have an integrator underneath him, because of those 20 ideas, 18 are going to be bad. And the integrator has to tell them this is not a good idea. Let's put a pin in that and we'll come back to it. Never. That's what the integrator should say. Because your integrator is logic, whereas your visionary is emotion. And if you're going through this and you're trying to build your accountability chart, and you want more clarity on these two, go back to his book and read Rocket Fuel. You'll understand how a visionary and integrator work together. And then under these two people, you're going to have a sales department, you have an operations department, and a finance department. No different than any other small business. The only main difference is your operations department is where you will find yourself. So, because you got making the product and providing the service, that's you. That's what makes this integration of Traction a little difficult, implementation of Traction a little difficult in dentistry. But you're going to have a sales and marketing team. It could be the marketing company that you hired. It could be, somebody in-house, whatever that may be. You have your operations, which is probably your dentist, your hygienist, and your assistant, maybe your office manager, or maybe your treatment coordinator, whatever that looks like for you guys. And then you're going to have your finance department. You're going to have your front desk. You're going to have your collections coordinator, whatever that looks like, and you're going to build that out. Now, when I say build this out, you're not going to build it out in accordance with your current staff. I want you to build out the accountability chart as your practice needs it. This is what my practice needs. And you might have a box that's empty. You might have a box that has 2 people in it. And that's good. That gives us clarity. Okay, so this is the accountability chart. Accountability chart, we've gone through this. This is what's going to help you now start to create a vision of what your practice could look like. Once you get the accountability chart put together, go through your vision traction organizer. And there's, like I said, there's a cookbook in Traction of how to do this. And I'm not going to spend much time right now on this, but I am going to go into this in detail a little bit later on another section. So your accountability chart, get your vision traction organizer put together. And then once you have your vision, you're going to have your rocks. Your rocks are what are the most critical objectives that you have for this quarter, this coming quarter. Before you implement this, I want you to have an idea of what these are. You may not have them all spelled out, but you'll have an idea of what do I need to do in the next 3 months. We're March, we're beginning of March. We are finishing our quarter, January, February, March. So as we have our meeting, our quarterly meeting at the end of this quarter, beginning of next quarter, we are looking at the rocks for the next, which is simply the next 3 months. And then you can fill in the rest after that. So make sure you get your rocks in order. Make sure you set aside time for a level 10 meeting. This is an example of a level 10 meeting. A level 10 meeting has 5 minutes at the beginning for good news. And that's 5 minutes. You don't have to have a life story. You don't have to hear about everything that happened. The good news is you share one good thing about personal and one good thing about work from the previous week, and then you move on. So and the reason why you do that is so everyone has buy-in into the meeting. And once you get through the good news, then you review the scorecard. And look, it's only 5 minutes, right? So this is not a time to discuss all the issues or the numbers on the scorecard. I'm going to show you what a scorecard looks like in a minute. This isn't the time to do that. This is the time to say, this is this, this is this, this is this. Oh, here's an issue. We're going to add this. We're going to talk about it later. Make sure you have set aside time for these meetings. The next is the rock review, 5 minutes. Are you on track? Are you off track? That's it. That's all I want to know. If you're off track, we'll make an issue and we'll talk about it later. We don't need to go into depth as far as why you're off track. Oh, I'm not doing this because this. I don't care at this point in time. I just want to know if we're off track, and if we are, we're going to add it to our issue list. People headlines. Hey, how's there? This is this week we have Abby's birthday tomorrow. We're going to celebrate when everybody put in your food order, or whatever it is. So and so from the office just got elected mayor, or whatever headlines you think you need. 5 minutes. To-do list. 5 minutes. Simply, Dr. Hill, this is what you're supposed to do. This is what you had agreed to do last week. This. Dr. Nelson, this. Ryan, this. 5 minutes. That's it. And then you have your IDS, which is the bulk of your section. You don't need 60 minutes, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes at the most. This is to identify, discuss, and solve your issues. And I'm not going to go into how to do that, but that's my favorite part of the meeting there. I think it's the most valuable thing. The important thing is you have to have this meeting every week. Every week. That's a non-negotiable. I'll talk about that later as well. And then you conclude, hey, how was the meeting? Rank it 1 to 10. That should only take a couple of minutes. So you need to have you need to have a time set aside. And the reason why you need to have a time set aside before you start is because a lot of times your hygiene department will be booked out for 6 months. And you say, oh, we're gonna do our meetings at 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And they just like, well, I got patients for 6 months booked out, or 3 months, or whatever it is. That gives you time to say, okay, in a month when I implement Traction, we'll move those 8 o'clock patients. So we have that hour to have our LT meeting, or however long you decide you want to do it. Scorecard. I'm going to go over this quickly. The scorecard allows you to hold your team members accountable for whatever metric that you have assigned them. Now, every person in your organization has to be responsible for something. They have to have a number of some sort. They have to be working towards a certain goal. If not, they just show up. They just show up and they put in their clock, and they clock in, they do their work, whatever that may be, then they go home. This gives accountability. And we can tell you from experience, Ryan, Dan, and I can tell you from experience, they want accountability. They want to be able to report and say, this is what I did. They want to be recognized. They want to be valued. This is a way for you to show them, I trust you. I recognize in you for the value, for the excellent job you did last week. You have to have a scorecard. Now, you don't have to have who's assigned all the measurables, but you're going to want to have an idea of what your measurables are, your KPIs, right? It's important to have a scorecard ready. Okay, so recap on this. The steps to take before implementation. So do not implement Traction unless you've got these things set and ready to go, or you understand exactly what you're getting into when you do these things. Okay, mistake number 2. Incomplete VTO. The VTO takes some time. The Vision Traction Organizer takes some time and thought to go through. It's big, and it's got a lot of big decisions in it. And it's hard sometimes. Sometimes the concepts are difficult. And we'll talk about this, but the importance of this before you implement Traction, before you start this thing, the VTO is designed to get the vision out of your head and into the head of others, right? So into the heads of your team members. They need to know exactly what you're thinking, so you can all be rowing in the same direction. But if you don't, if you have a partial VTO, you're going to lack clarity. You're going to have double vision, if you will. So the one employee may see the top double vision from what you said. The second one may see a different version of the double vision, or third version, or fourth version, whatever it may be. The same words, but they see it differently. That's a lack of clarity. And that only happens when your VTO is incomplete. Yeah, I set my core values, I got my BHAG, whatever it is, but I don't really have my marketing plan, or I don't have this or that. That can't happen. That's a recipe for disaster. So the VTO consists of these 7 things. What are your core values? Core focus, 10-year target, what's your marketing strategy? What is your 3-year picture? What's your 1-year plan? What are your issues? This is what your VTO consists of. Okay, I want to go through each one of these. This is a really cool picture I found of some core values. When you set your core values, display them and find a way to show them off. And what's cool is you keep your core values between 3 and 7, and they all have unique names. I'm not going to go into all of this because this is in Traction and it's a recipe book, but this is cool. It's all about these are this company's core values. Contagious energy with a positive attitude. That's a cool way to say it rather than just say be positive, right? Or positivity. Maybe it started out with positivity, but it evolved into this, and then it has a little explanation. We inspire everyone with our friendly and optimistic outlook. When you think of your core, and that's why it's sometimes it's hard to come up with the core values, because it takes some creativity, it takes some time. These things take a little bit of time to get in order. Okay, this is just another example. We went and had a conference at the Dental Intel building a while ago, and it's right as you walk in, this is on their wall. And I thought this was so cool, so I took a picture of it. They have 6 core values: goal-focused, work-life balance, fiercely loyal, unwavering integrity, perseverance, and innovative. And then they have a description under each one of those, which I thought was just a really cool example of how to display your core values. So in your reception area, or maybe in your staff room, whatever you want, find a cool way to display your core values that your people can get excited about. Okay, and the second part of your VTO is your core focus. Your core focus is, why are we doing this? Why do we exist? Why does Wood River Dental Care exist? And then what can we be the best at? Focusing on a single area is gonna help you row in the right direction. Okay, then you got your 10-year target, which is your BHAG. What's a BHAG? It's a big, hairy, audacious goal. This is the one larger than life goal that everyone is working toward. The thing that gives everyone in the organization a long range direction. This is the BHAG for your practice. This is not your personal BHAG. I know they're intertwined, but your staff doesn't need to know that your BHAG is to climb Mount Everest or climb Kilimanjaro, whatever it is. I mean, they can know that. You can talk about that, and that can be a part of it. But this is the BHAG for the practice, meaning in 10 years, Wood River Dental Care is going to look like this, right? And why is that important? Because this is the one thing that gives everyone in the organization a reason to do what you ask them to do, or a reason to do what the practice needs to have done to get there, whether you assign it to them or whether they come up with it on their own, which is preferable. That is why you need to set these high goals. Okay, marketing strategy. I'm not going to go into this because Dan did an awesome 3-part webinar on marketing. I mean, so much information. There's 3 hours at least plus of an awesome marketing strategy that you need to have. That's part of your VTO. You need to write it down and have it as part of your VTO so you can access it, and members of all your team can access as well. It includes your target market, your 3 uniques, your proven process, and it includes your guarantee. Okay. Then once you have your VTO, then you have your 3-year picture. I thought this was a really good example of this bodybuilder guy, right? So on the left is where he's at now. He's in decent shape, pretty good shape comparatively speaking to some, right? And it's often how we find ourselves. Our practice is in pretty good shape. We're doing pretty good. How you doing? I'm doing good. Yeah, making money. Yeah, so forth. But he knew that the guy on the right was his BHAG, right? He wanted to be this big cut, lean, strong bodybuilder. But in order to get there, he had to have a plan. So he had to have a 3-year picture of what it looked like. He had to be able to see himself at 3 years in order to be able to get to his 10-year BHAG. And the same with our practice. If we want our practice, if our BHAG is to own 10 practices in 10 years, well, what does that look like in 3? At 5, it's not that great to plan because so many things change or happen in that. But in 3 years, you can plan for 3 years. In 3 years, I'm going to have 3 practices, or in 3 years, I'll have my second practice. Whatever that looks like for you, you have to be able to see it. Your team has to be able to see it in order to be able to then say, oh man, this BHAG, it could be a reality. I can see, I can make that leap now from 0 to 10, right? From 0 to bodybuilder. I can see how we get there now. Because a goal without a plan, it's just a dream. So we got a plan. After you paint your picture for 3 years, you have to know how to get there. And that's when you break it down into 1-year plan. This is what Gino said. He said, with a 3-year picture in mind, you need to discuss, debate, decide on the 3 to 7 most important priorities that must be completed this year in order for you to be on track for the 3-year picture. These become your goals. They need to be specific, they need to be measurable, and they need to be attainable. So with your 1-year plan, you sit down with your leadership team and you draw that out. Now, this is weird. Why would you add issues to your VTO? What kind of issues do you add to your VTO? These are not the issues that you come across on a weekly basis. This isn't the issue of, hey, we're having a problem getting our scans over to Invisalign. We need somebody to train people on how to use a scanner. That's an operational issue. That's a week-to-week issue. That's a systematic issue that you talk about. The issues that go on your VTO are the issues that come up for preventing you from achieving your BHAG. For example, but what about, see, I want to own 10 practices in 10 years, but what about whatever that is? What about the amount of debt you need to go in, or whatever that issue is? Well, we can't do that because ... Or, you know what, Jen's just not going to buy into it because these are all the issues that need to go in onto your VTO. And these are the issues that you will eventually work through. Okay. Mistake number 3, inconsistency. This is you can think of this like parenting, and parenting is so hard. We've got one parent saying no, one parent saying, yeah, go. And the child is confused. Inconsistency in implementing traction is probably the biggest killer in it. You have to do things on a consistent basis. If not, it's going to kill my vibe. Inconsistency kills my vibe, and it will sink like a ship. The resulting challenge from inconsistency is a failure to follow through. If you don't have a system for holding your staff and team members accountable on a weekly basis, there's no accountability. Right? There's poor communication, there's stagnation, and then there's absolute chaos. I think it's more damaging to try to implement this being inconsistent than not implementing it at all. Be consistent. Okay, mistake number 4, the dictatorship. You can run your practice 2 ways. You can be a dictator and you can have a dictatorship, or you can have you can build a true leadership team. The resulting challenge is you've got a lack of buy-in. If you sit down and you say, okay, Chanel, I'm going to put you in charge of this. I'm going to put you in charge of our patient benefit plan. I'm going to put you in charge of signing people up, and I'm going to give you the goal of 10 new members a month. That's called a dictatorship. If you say, Marion, I'm going to put you in charge of cosmetics, whether you have an affinity for it or not. And I need you to get 2 cosmetic cases a week. That's a dictatorship. And what's going to happen is they're going to go through the week. They're not going to think much about it. And you're going to get to the Monday morning meeting, And they're going to be like, you're going to go over the scorecard and you say, hey, Marion, you didn't get any cosmetic case last week. She's like, oh, yeah, yeah. And that's it. And not know what to do or what to say. There's no buy-in if you just give this to them, if you dictate it to them. So you got to build a true leadership team. So when you're coming up, when you're going over your VTO, you're going over your scorecard, when you're putting together your measurables, your KPIs. Hey, I want to track this on a weekly basis, cosmetic cases, implants, um, patient benefit plan, whatever it is, that's fine to decide what those are. But before assigning them to somebody and telling them what that metric number is, get together with them and come up with that together. And then by doing that, you say, look, this is your metric. I'm going to have you report on it every week. And if we don't hit it, I'm going to have you explain why. If we do hit it, we're going to celebrate. And this is on you. And you can say we can brainstorm together, we can come up with a plan together. But your leadership team, not you as a visionary, you're not the dictator. Your leadership team, meaning probably visionary, probably integrator, and probably a couple other team leaders. On our team, on our leadership team, we have our treatment coordinator. Well, there's me and Dan and Ryan. Dan and I being visionaries, Ryan's our integrator, and we have our treatment coordinator, Jennifer, and we have our hygiene team leader, Shayla, on our leadership team. And we discuss stuff on a leadership team. And it doesn't come from the owners that this is what you guys should do. We come up with these things together, and then they have buy-in. Otherwise, no buy-in. Okay, the last mistake. Expecting others to implement traction for you. This is the lazy way out. This is why people hire consultants, is because they want them to come in. And this is a typical role that some consultants have played in the past. They will come in, they will set up all of your systems, they will talk to your staff or whatever. And sometimes it helps or works for a while, but eventually it doesn't work. You can't expect others to implement your system, because the resulting challenge is it's going to be inadequate implementation. You're only going to implement part of it. It's never going to be a full implementation. Okay, lesson learned. Going forward, no one listened to Dawn, right? It's going to get to a point where it's going to be like, okay, lesson learned. Going forward, no one listened to Dr. Hill. He's just going to come in and halfway through this thing and then just, peter out after a while. So you're going to have inadequate implementation. You got to remember, you're the captain of your own ship. At Elevation Association, we are concerned with helping develop you as a dentist, professionally and personally. We will work on occasion with your staff, or we'll help them, or we'll answer questions for them. But at the end of the day, that's not productive. That shouldn't come from us. We will help you become the captain of your ship, and you need to implement it yourself. You need to spend the time, go through the traction book, get a grip on your business, go through those areas before you implement it, and we will help you walk through all of those areas. We'd be happy to. We've done it. We've made mistakes. We will meet with you as often as we need to help you prepare for that. So when the time comes, you're ready to kill it, to slay it. So, in conclusion, the 5 common mistakes. 1, premature implementation. Okay. You're not ready. You're excited. You love it. You love the concept. But you're not ready to do it. Okay. Do not do it until you've actually gone through and gone through the book and developed those 5 areas. The second common mistake is an incomplete VTO. Print out the paper. Go on Bloom Growth. Make sure that everything is filled out. Make sure you're comfortable before presenting it to your team. Inconsistency. I cannot stress enough how much consistency is going to lead to success. That is the only way to do it. Right now, when we have our meetings, I'll tell you how we do it. And we do it Monday morning. We start at 7:45. And currently I lead the hygiene team meeting. I'm in with the hygiene team. Ryan is in with the front office meeting, and Dan is in with the restorative department meeting. And we go through our little L10 meeting. And I will tell you that the hygienists cannot wait to report their numbers. And when I walk into the room, if the hygienists had a bad week, I can see it in their faces before I get in there. If they've had a great week, I can see it in their faces as well. And we go through that scorecard and we celebrate. And we say, man, your production per visit was awesome. Oh man, your reschedule rate was 100%. How did you get that? Man, your fluoride rate was this. We go through all the KPIs and we go through that. But they know that every week, every Monday morning, we're going to go through that. And then after we have our individual meetings, we end up in one big meeting because we have a big crowd. We've got 15 or so team members there. And we go through the scorecard and we have everyone report on their one number. And then we talk about it. And I don't report it for them. Dan doesn't report it for them. Ryan doesn't report it for them. He drives the meeting. But when we get to collections, Daisy reports the collections number, the collections percentage. She reports the accounts receivable. And then we move on to Sandra, who's in charge of she's in charge of the front office of the calls of patients. She's got like 6 things she's in charge of, which is too many. But and then we move on down the line. Beth reports some stuff for the hygiene department. Shayla does. Everyone's got something, and the consistency of that is what makes it successful. The dictatorship. You can run a dictatorship and it'll be fine, but it is exhausting. You're gonna get tired. You're gonna wear down. I know. I tried to solve everything for a long time, for like 10 years. I tried to solve everything. I tried to have them. I tried to have one-on-ones with people. I tried to have group meetings where I was the person who tried to solve everything. It doesn't work. And you may have that personality where I kind of like that. That's great. It's going to be okay for a while, but the dictatorship limits your growth. If you want to run a dictatorship, you're going to only be able to have a certain size of practice, and you can never grow beyond that. And the last thing is expecting others to implement. Like I said, you're the captain of the ship. Let's do this. You can do this. You can take this. You can run. You can implement this, and your life will be incredible. You will find unheard of amounts of success. You will reach the BHAG that you thought was impossible. You'll work towards that, and all of a sudden everybody will be working towards that, and you'll have a successful practice and a successful life. So don't make those mistakes. Come to us. Let us help if we want to, if you want us to, and then we can go from there. Are there any questions? I did all the talking through the whole thing. Are there any questions that anybody has?
I think, Jared, I don't have a question so much as, it's interesting is we work with practices and people and talk to them about their core values. There's a handful of them that have something to do with accountability, responsibility, something along those lines in their core values. And if you don't have a good meeting, how are you holding your team accountable? And that's one of the things that I think we've learned over, through trial and error, is that if you're going to have that as a core value, if that's something that you value in your practice, in your business, is to, hey, we want people to be responsible or accountable, to things. If you don't have an accountability chart, but also it's equally important to have these meetings so that, as tasks or items are assigned to somebody, that they can be responsible to those things, or just their job. If there's certain things that they are a metric that or KPI that they're responsible for, how are you going to hold them responsible for that if you don't have an organized meeting to do that. Would you guys be interested in having a Bloom growth training, like
I
a level
would.
10? Okay. I
Yeah.
wonder
I
if
think
next month we do that, guys. If we have a training meeting, show you guys how to use it.
Yeah,
That'd
I
be helpful.
think that would be awesome. Because bloom growth is what changes. I mean, that's the key. I mean, holding that for people to be able to see. The cool thing about bloom growth is when you create that scorecard, it's just a part of bloom growth. When you create the scorecard, their metric shows up in either green or red, and it's very easily seen whether they've hit it or not. And one of the hygienists comments, she's consistently in the red in one category. We measure 7 or 8 different categories that we hold hygienists accountable for. And she made a comment. She's like, "Man, I would just like to be in the green for once in that one," and we create issues off of that. But anyway, yeah, bloom growth is very powerful, especially for your staff or your team members.
I think the good thing about Bloom Growth is it takes everything Jared talked about tonight and organizes it and keeps it in one place, right? Like it's the software that is built off the Traction um, concept, right? So it used to be called Traction Tools before EOS came out with its own copy of Traction Tools, and they had to change their name from Traction Tools to Bloom Growth. But they're actually the original software that's built off of the book Traction. And so to implement it is it's a plug and play for Traction. So it's got the BTO, L10 meetings, all that stuff already in there. And so, yeah, I think it would be a great opportunity to go through next month and just kind of go through training would be good.
Cool.
Yeah, it's and even in a small practice, Robin, where it's just you and a few employees, 3 or 4 employees. That's still enough. It's important to have a place to go to it, to where, because how many times do you forget? Oh crap, we were supposed to talk about this thing. You know what I mean? It's fine if your office is small, but nobody's life is small. Everybody's got kids, grandkids, this responsibility. I got to go and do this thing tonight. I'm supposed to be at that, and I got to go do that. And so it's just the way that life, how busy it is nowadays, to have a centralized location for the entire team to be able to go to and implement. And that's the other thing, is that your team has access to the meeting stuff, so they can put in issues. They can put in, if there's an event coming up, someone's birthday, someone's having a baby, something, whatever it is in the news, you can, in the announcements, you can put that right into the section so it doesn't get forgotten. So it's just a centralized place to have very, very efficient meetings. I hate meetings. I've been to so many crappy, inefficient meetings. And so these are super effective, super efficient meetings, with the exception of the good news with my restoration team. But I will say this about it. I value that time a ton, because it's a chance for my team to talk about their personal life with each other in a forum that we can laugh and have fun, commiserate, celebrate, and get a window into our personal lives. And so they value that time a lot. And so I really appreciate that time. So it sounds kind of silly, but the whole thing is just so nice to have.
The issues list on those meetings, that is what allows you to get away from a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Issues list means that you don't have to solve it. And what it means is the employees will stop coming to you to solve it, because you say, that sounds like an issue we need to discuss. Let's discuss that with the team. And they enter it in, and then you talk about it as a team, and the true leadership team comes up with an answer, not a dictator. Of course, you have the final say. It's a dumb idea. You'd be like, yeah, it's a dumb idea, but no, but it's, if they can come up with their own. This is the beauty of Traction. It's one system. And this system allows you to create your own systems within your own practice, because everybody knows that every practice is different and unique, and you've got different personalities, you've got different way of doing things. And I think that it's a huge disservice to come in and say, this is the system that you should use for tracking. This is the system that you should use for your scripting. You should use. No, figure that out with your team. But the way to do that is by following the EOS system, right? This traction system will allow you to discuss with your team to create your own systems and work through some stuff. And that way you take all the pressure off of you as a dictator, because you now they're buying, because it was part of it was their idea, which is so beautiful about this whole traction thing. So as a summary, how about that? Good, thank you. Anything else? Any other comments? If not, it's awesome. We are, about 7:52, so we will wrap things up. Do we have any announcements for the tribe, Ryan or Dan?
Just that we're starting to shape up. We don't have all the details yet, but just be watching for your email or text on the international trip next year. That's starting to take shape, and we're going to have a location to announce in the next little bit. The other thing is mark your calendars off for June. June 13th, 14th, and 15th. That is our summit here. That's going to be really special because we're doing Father Justin is coming from St. Gaspar Hospital in Itigi, Tanzania, where we do our Dental Legacy Foundation work. And we're going to have our fundraiser here at up the canyon just a little bit on the 14th. We're going to be river rafting, mountain biking. It's going to be in a golf, not a tournament. We're just going to go play some. I mean, it'll be a tournament, but it'll be more like a scramble. It'll be fun. So, first time for us to do golf. We thought it was cliche forever, but if we're ever going to get the Collisters out to anything, we have to go golf. So we're going to go golf.
We're gonna go hack around on a course. That's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. I do have a question that's come up. Brian sent us a letter today for a patient dismissal letter that was interesting. We had a patient that he signed up for our patient benefit plan, and then it automatically renews.